I do like the fact that people are being more open about it. Like, I don't even remember my mum even mentioning it at all. Like, it wasn't like in their generation, it was sort of very much like hush hush and all of this. And now there's women coming out and saying this is the best phase of my life. I mean, there are women that have totally turned their lives around because they've got an empty nest, they've got more time back.
Welcome to the Wellness Breakdown, where we examine the latest health trends and we discuss how lifestyle and nutrition can truly change the way you live.
I'm Eve Kalinik. I'm a nutritional therapist, author and consultant.
And I'm Rose Ferguson. I'm a functional medicine practitioner and also an author.
Yeah, we haven't always been in this game. Rose spent most of her youth on international catwalks as one of the most iconic 90s supermodels.
I'm not sure about that, but Eve had a very hectic career as a fashion PR. So we've definitely been there, we've done it, and there is no room here to preach.
Yeah, this isn't one of those waggy fingers should do podcasts. We're here to dig into some of the wellness trends, figure out whether some of this stuff is just nonsense, and give our personal and professional opinions on some of it.
It amazes me that the global wellness industry is now worth over $5 trillion. So before you go out spending your hard-earned cash on the latest new thing, make sure you listen to the Wellness Breakdown first. The Wellness Breakdown is sponsored by Ancient and Brave, a mission-driven wellness brand with an award-winning range of collagen, MCT oil and nootropic blends. From supporting menopausal symptoms to supercharging your energy, Ancient and Brave's products are pure, potent and easy to make part of your daily, morning or wellness ritual.
Personally, I find the True Collagen really easy to take, and I normally add it into my morning coffee, which is a habit that I already have ingrained. I'm never going to miss my morning coffee, and it's definitely a way to maintain consistency.
Yes, well, I love collagen too, and I've been using Ancient and Brave for a very long time, and I do use it with clients. I use it for myself. I do actually love the cacao blends. I love the collagen one with cacao. Delicious.
Yeah, and what really sets them apart is their sustainability. They're a B Corp as well as a member of the 1% for the planet. This means donating 1% of all sales to environmental causes that protect the planet, because collective action adds up. So buying their products means you're supporting the planet too. Visit 1%fortheplanet.org to learn more. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Wellness Breakdown, and this is quite a big topic and one that Rose and I have discussed on and off for many years, mostly because we see a lot of clients in this kind of phase of life, and it's something that actually has been getting a little bit more media attention, which is fantastic. But we still think there's quite a lot to be discussed around it, and so we thought this would be a really good episode to focus on.
So you might already be going through it, and what we're talking about is the perimenopause and wondering about it. It's definitely something we do get asked a lot about. I would say that, I'm at my age, I probably am. Things are starting to change. I notice my cycle is slightly different than it used to be. I would say it's very symptom-led. The perimenopause is not the same for everybody. And so you just have to listen to your body. So, so for me, I would say that I've noticed a change. So that to me tells me that the hormones are on the change, aka I'm in perimenopause. I mean, it's a really big subject, as you said, Eve, and I think our goal here is to pluck out the information, simplify it, because I think it is a minefield of lots of information, and I don't, and it's quite difficult for people to understand, and that does not help the situation when people are feeling, when women feel like their bodies are changing and they don't really understand how to stop it. And some people have very extreme symptoms as well. So I guess, should we start with what is the perimenopause? I mean,
you kind of alluded to it really well there, and thank you for sharing your own personal journey with it, because herein lies the thing is that a lot of women don't really talk about it. I mean, particularly in my mum's generation, anything with the M word in was it was sort of like almost given like a shameful tag in a way. And I think it's great that now we are talking in and around it. And actually perimenopause feels like a new thing, but actually obviously it's been with women for, ever since we were first created in a way. I guess, yeah, what is the perimenopause? Well, really is that transition period, which can be so vast, like it's going to massively vary from one woman to another, So it could be starting in your even mid-30s. Some women actually start their transition at that age. Typically, it's around sort of 40s, early to mid-40s. And it is that period where we are moving into post-menopause. So post-menopause or menopause is actually 1 year to the date of the last period, technically. Despite there being lots of blood tests actually that you can have done, the thinking around that now is that they're sort of a bit arbitrary in a way, and actually we should be listening more to symptoms rather than blood tests, because you might come back and your doctor might say, actually, don't, all your hormones are not per se like in the normal reference range, but you have a whole load of these symptoms. So I think that's becoming less and less now kind of used as a valid tool in a way. I guess we should think about some of the symptoms that people might be experiencing, Rose. So you mentioned there that you've noticed like changes in your period. So
the problem is it's a fluctuation, which is why you get changing symptoms. They come, they go. So sometimes, some months my cycle will be completely normal. Some months it will be a little bit shorter. Some months it'll go back to being normal. I think mood's a big one I see, because I think that's confusing to people. It's obvious that there's a hormonal change because my cycle length is changing. But I think for some people, when they are feeling really depressed or really irritable or whatever it is, that isn't quite so clearly linked, to your period or your cycle, monthly cycle. I think that's when people are going, what's wrong with me? I don't know what's happened to me. And it's very hard for people because they don't link it with potential change in their hormonal status.
Yeah, I think mood is one that often kind of maybe women go to see their GP and they might be given antidepressants or whatever, and actually it might be a bit more of a bigger picture thing that's happening there. But I think mood is a really key one. Also insomnia. I think that's quite another one that I've heard quite a lot. Maybe even some hot flushes or more obvious ones. I mean, that's probably more into menopause, but certainly perimenopausally you can get things like that.
I mean, there can be aching joints, that's the thing, it's the symptoms are so varied, which is actually probably why I would suggest you see, if you're going to a doctor, I would actually suggest you go and see a menopause specialised doctor. I do think it's worth doing that because some people, I see women who feel like they're losing their minds, and as you say, they're given antidepressants.
Yeah.
But actually, what's going on is that their hormones changing. And the other thing, I suppose, is weight gain's something that starts to creep in. They can't manage their weight. And the thing about sleep is that it does disrupt their sleep quite a lot in some cases. And then it ends up making you feel tired. Then it ends up making you feel stressed. Then it's like, it's this whole cascade just because because it can be absolutely chronic for some people, and it goes on and on and on. And they wake up at 2:00 in the morning and then that's it. And it can be because they're having a night sweat that wakes them up, but it doesn't have to be.
Absolutely. And I think as, just thinking about a hormonal perspective, the reason why we do get a lot of these symptoms in perimenopause and certainly into menopause is declining levels of estrogen. A lot of the things that we've been talking about, like aching joints, night sweats, vaginal dryness is another big one. Insomnia, it's not a lot of it. it's not all about estrogen, it's actually not, but some of those symptoms can be attributed to that. So that's kind of what's happening. So that can start in perimenopause because as we age, we produce less follicles, so we can be producing less estrogen. So it might even be on a more of a sort of subtle level that's happening.
What also happens, and I know it's confusing, even if you're trying to make it simple, it's confusing, but if, for example, you can have a month where you don't ovulate, your cycle can feel completely normal, but it's called anovulation. And if you don't ovulate, you don't produce progesterone. And so then you've had a month, and I'm not saying you wouldn't know, it's not like you have a little flag going up saying there's no progesterone, but it's just all these things at play, all these changes that are happening are what creates the symptoms, the huge array of symptoms over perimenopause, because they're all just jumping up and down and jumping around. So, we talk about cruciferous vegetables, for example, and how to help them. It supports the liver to help remove estrogen from the body. And everyone's like, well, why would you want to do that? Surely estrogen, we need estrogen and we're losing estrogen. It's because there are these surges of these hormones and you want to try and, you want to help the body deal with those surges.
It's more about a balance between estrogen and progesterone. So like you say, by eating those cruciferous vegetables, it's more about getting that balance between the hormones rather than trying to get more of one than the other, if that makes sense, and balancing it that way. Although obviously, that can be really beneficial in the kind of forms of, certain foods can help to mimic the impact of estrogen. Fermented soy usually is what I kind of recommend. A little bit of tofu here and there, fine. But things like miso paste and tempeh, those types of foods. Tahini. But, sometimes it is a for some women, they find HRT is actually life-changing, and that's really an individual thing. And obviously we're not, medical doctors here to be talking about HRT really in any, I certainly don't feel comfortable talking about that with any real professional opinion because I don't know enough about it. But I do know that clients have had huge game-changing differences in their health by using it, but it has to be so bespoke. And I think that's also changed quite a lot in the conversation around perimenopause and menopause. What do you think about that, Rose?
I would never interfere with someone's HRT or tell them to take it or not to take it. But all the science I've read around HRT is pretty positive about it. Having said that, there are clients who really don't get on with it. Because I did a menopause series last year. We had a whole panel of actual experts in menopause.
Yeah.
What was interesting is that the feeling is that HRT, so for example, if you had low thyroid or you would take thyroxine, if you are diabetic, you take insulin. And so there was this interesting concept that rather than thinking of it as therapy, I think, it's like a hormone insufficiency, because they were basically saying, when you get older, your estrogen declines or your progesterone declines. And so it was a way of replacing that. It's funny because for me, I have avoided taking exogenous hormones my entire life. I didn't ever take the contraceptive pill. I had a copper coil. I didn't want the Mirena coil. And now I'm thinking, maybe I'll start lathering on estrogen. We know that it's good for bone density, but it's only good if you continue to take it. We know that it might, we don't know. See, this is the thing. It might be good for cognition in the long term. There are lots of things it might be good for, but it's quite early days because obviously there was that whole hoo-ha in the 80s where it was considered really bad and could drive estrogen dominant cancers, and that study has been shown to be flawed in so many ways now.
It just comes back down to doing your own research around this, speaking to a few experts, because it is such an individual thing in terms of HRT. But I think it's really great that you've highlighted that, because I think a lot of people, there is still some hangover from that association. And there's completely different types of HRT as well. So you've got bioidentical HRT, which is much more, in inverted commas, natural. So, like creams and things like that. So I also think we need to just highlight the fact that it's HRT, however good it is, even if it's the most amazing body identical hormones, like you can't just rely on that. And that's where we come in as... nutritional therapists, functional medical practitioners that are there to help support all of the other things. Like I find in my practice, a lot of women get to the perimenopause or menopause, and they've actually not really thought so much about things like even managing their stress, alcohol consumption, big one, what are they doing in terms of diet and things like that. So there are a lot of things there, and even some more natural supplements that might be able to help with the transitionary period. Quite extensive studies on certain herbs and things like that. It does vary from individual to individual, to be honest with you, but there are some nutrients and definitely some lifestyle tips that are going to help with most of us, in terms of this. So if we're drinking lots of wine, and everybody knows I like a glass of red wine.
I love that you hesitate. I hesitate. I'm quite scared with a perimenopausal woman in front of me to say, well, actually just anyone in front of me to say, can you cut down on the wine, please? I'm like, there you go.
But especially when we chuck in that you've got to take out caffeine as well. We're talking about on the previous episode on the adrenals, which actually, to be honest, that episode is very relevant for perimenopause, because the adrenals are essentially sort of need to, in some regards, take over from the ovaries in producing the small amounts of estrogen that we have post-menopausally. So you do need to actually think about your adrenals probably way before this part, or at least figure that into your perimenopausal journey. So kind of a lot of things we talked about in the last episode would be relevant, like, managing the whole stress picture, definitely. But then in terms of like nutrition, as we talked about at the start in terms of symptoms, because the symptoms are wide, like they're one of the main ones, or can be, is increased insulin sensitivity.
Yeah.
So anything we can do to help balance our blood sugar levels, which means having plenty of fibre in the diet. We know that the microbiome has a role to play in helping to detoxify hormones and particularly estrogens, but it seems to have quite a significant role in helping through the menopause, so perimenopause. So yeah, gut health, obviously I can't, have no excuse to mention gut health at any given point, but
just looping back a little bit to the adrenal thing, what I think lots of women forget is that actually, yes, all this stuff is going, these changes are going on, and you can have brain fog and, anxiety and just some really not very nice symptoms. But then also life, if you were to remove the concept of perimenopause and look at women's lives in their 40s and 50s, most of them are really stressed out. Most of them are the busiest they have ever been. They have, a lot of people have children then. Most women are at work and they're at the top of their careers. Do you know what I mean? So it's like they've got more responsibility. They probably own a house. They probably, I don't know. I don't want to be generalizing, but it can be a very stressful time, on top of which, and I don't know, I mean, this is a bit of a contentious subject, but the idea of aging, I think, for women is very stressful. For a lot of people, losing their period it's sort of like the mentality around it is you're losing your youth. And the thing that I love now is, do you know who was on my menopause series was Nadia Narin? She is an old
she's brilliant. Yeah.
She's brilliant. She's an old friend, but she's an old school yogi. She just was like, I am so excited. And you could see with every fibre in her body, she was like, I am so excited. It's like a whole new world. And it's not because she was not having a period, and it's not because of anything, but she is so excited about the next phase of life. It was infectious. Listening to her, you were like, God, it's so, like, turn it on its head and look at it as a positive.
I do like the fact that people are being more open about it. Like, I don't even remember my mum even mentioning it at all. Like, it wasn't like in their generation, it was sort of very much like hush hush and all of this. And now there's women coming out and saying, this is the best phase of my life. I mean, there are women that have totally turned their lives around because they've got an empty nest, they've got more time back, they can, so yeah, to your point, there is obviously stress because, as you get older, there is, lots of other things going on, but in the same regard, there might be, the children might have like left the home, and so they've got more time. Like there's a fantastic fitness expert called Kate Roham. She totally changed her life around and became this fitness coach, and she just released a really fantastic book, but it was literally because almost like spearheaded by the menopause. There's so many amazing, inspiring stories like that, and like Nadia, who's obviously like flourishing and things like this. So the more, I guess, women can kind of share that experience. I mean, she also said something really quite sage as well. Because the symptoms are so vague, she said it's really important for women to not just assume that things are perimenopausal or menopausal, because it might actually be something more like serious. And so don't just brush things off, and like you should be, and I thought that was really, really sage, because women might just ignore certain things. So just be mindful of that.
That second phase in postmenopause is bigger than it's ever been, so we spend as much time in postmenopause now as we do in premenopause, in menstrual cycles. So we better get on board with accepting that and thinking it's okay, because it's half your life. So, and I think so there are lots of things you can do to help the transition. Cruciferous vegetables are amazing. The phase 1 and phase 2 detox need slightly different things, but things like cabbage, I've got something called indole 3-carbinol in them, and that is...
here she goes about Brussels sprouts again.
Brussels sprouts.
I mean, I have any opportunity to mention fibre and gut microbes, and Rose is on about Brussels sprouts.
They are out of season. We'll be glad to, so I won't. I'm talking about cabbage.
They are out of season, but I'm sure you could get a hold of them if you really wanted to. No, you're right though. Brassica vegetables are amazing, also because they contain. Supporting those detoxification pathways is really important. That's where there has been some research around NAC, which is a supplement that helps to promote the production of glutathione, and it's really important, that detoxification process. But also there's quite enough studies talking about its positive impact on insulin sensitivity. Although, as we always caveat every episode, like, don't just start taking supplements because we're talking about them. It's just to kind of spark interest, and then definitely go find somebody that can help you with those, because we don't know what other medications or where there might be contraindications. But that one is a really interesting one. And then certain herbs I know have been, I'm not a herbalist, but there are certain herbs that anecdotally can help with some of the symptoms, like ashwaganda's quite a famous one.
It's really effective for a lot of women, ashwagandha, and there are things like black cohosh. There is something, I tell you what has been quite effective for me, and it's lovely when these really simple ones help, is sage. So, if you've got to get sage leaf from the supermarket, if you're not growing it.
I love sage.
Just
deep
stick it in your
fried
tea. Yeah, exactly. On a risotto or some ravioli. Delicious. Some people, that's what I mean. It's lovely when it works, but who were having hot flushes. I've had some women who have just started taking literally sage leaves in water, and it's helped their hot flushes.
I love that you're like sage tea, so simple. Like you can grow sage in the UK. Like you can stick it in omelettes and scrambled eggs and all sorts of things. So we also should talk about fats, good quality fats in the diet. So for hormones, again, I think we have mentioned this on a few episodes now, but omega-3s, so oily fish, is great for that. And
nuts and
some organic grass-fed meat can provide some really good quality fats. Extra virgin olive oil.
Try people to drink less alcohol. I know that sounds really boring, but if you switch it, I'm thinking,
we were having such a lovely time there, Rose, talking about nuts and seeds, and
it really doesn't help your insulin resistant people. It really, really doesn't.
Definitely doesn't do anything for your cognitive health either.
And
really,
it doesn't help you sleep. This is someone who had 3 glasses of wine last night talking, by the way. So,
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Everything in moderation, because in small amounts, it also builds community, and there's a lovely social aspect to it and all of that stuff. But you don't want to be, necking a bottle of wine every night. I would say this, definitely for most women, and it feels, especially if you're somebody that has not really done any strength resistance training, you might think that you're going to pick up a weight and be Arnold Schwarzenegger, but you do need to do some type of form of resistance training as you're getting older. I mean, I'm an advocate of strength resistance training for everybody, but particularly for women, because I find that sometimes for whatever reason, they've got some, negative association with it. But it can actually be it can give you a really positive focus, and you see your body changing in a way that is very different to cardiovascular exercise. And the reason why I'm saying strength resistance training is because it helps with bone density. And as we're getting older, that is an issue.
So your muscles are they're like a really great metabolic organ. And if you have metabolic issues, or if you are struggling with insulin resistance and you are gaining weight around the middle, strength training, it's brilliant for bone density, obviously, but it's great for lean muscle mass, which is something that also goes out the window. If you think about people who fall and break a hip, if you've got good muscle density, if you've got good, strong muscles, you're more likely to be able to stabilise, and hopefully those sort of accidents will happen less and I'm talking obviously in much later life, but they are things to think about, because also when those hormone levels drop, it can be harder to build muscle. So if you start just building up now, and as Eve said, people always think they're just going to end up looking like Arnie. You're not. Yeah. And I know this because I did a challenge which said that weight, I love that. And I still do weights now. And I really, I feel better. I feel much better for it. So checking your bone density is super important. In your 20s, 30s, wherever, to get a baseline. And then you can then have a look at it again when you are in later life and see, so you can keep a gauge on it, because it's something that you can work really well with food and exercise and weight bearing. Sadly, I have quite a few clients who did DEXA scans when they were in perimenopause and found out that they were in quite serious osteoporosis state. And it's just really, when you're like, oh, if only you'd done the test before. So what I think Eve and I would both agree with, go get your bone density checked.
I think prevention is definitely better than cure in that one. And I know we talk about testing, and some of these tests can be a bit more pricier than others, but that one is a key one really.
You can start bouncing on your trumpet like my gran used to do when we did the trampolining episode. She used to do that. Oh, my bone density, dear.
Yes, exactly.
Anyway.
There's so much more we could talk about here, and it'd be nice to hear people's real life experiences. So I'd love to, I'm sure both of us would love to hear from you guys and hear about your positive experiences, really, and negative. I mean, it's a safe space for you to kind of share whatever you're going through. So please do let us know, and any feedback on the episode we really welcome. But we have got some emails here.
Hi, Rose and Eve. I'm a new subscriber to the podcast and I'm loving the new format. Your Christmas episode made me laugh so much. You both have amazing mothers. You should bring them back. I'm sure my mum would love to. Also, I love my matcha. Like you, Rose, I stopped drinking coffee a long time ago, but I really still love the smell of it. Matcha, however, gives me enough of a boost. Anna. Oh, well, I'm very glad. And actually, it's not bad. I did have our mums, but maybe they should be a regular feature.
I think they should have their own podcast, actually.
Well, no, my mum would be back in a shot.
Yes, anyway. so would mine. Yeah, brilliant. I've got another one here. Hi, Eve and Rose. I love your podcast. It helps me so much and learn so many things. You and Rose really break down concepts difficult for us, in brackets, common people, to understand and make it clearer. I'm going through a difficult period in my life, career-wise, and it's hugely reflecting in my body. Your tips are not solving all my problems, but they are really helping me on the little things. Thank you for sharing and keep doing it, Serena. So that's really sweet.
That's nice. Yeah, lovely.
Yeah. Thank you so much for watching the episode. If you can subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below, that would be amazing. We're also available to listen to wherever you get your podcasts. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please share an episode with your friends. And don't forget, you can email us at info@thewellnessbreakdown.co.uk or message us on Instagram. See you next week.
See you then. Bye.